Oh no. Wait, oh, can you hear me now? Maybe. Is that better? No, it's not on your end, Chase. It was me being off. Ah, there we go. So, apologies for that. It turns out when I set up the other light, so now it would be lit on one half of my face. I guess I unplugged my mic, which might be helpful. I'm also going to turn the mic volume down a little bit. It looks like that was a little bit high. Let me know how the levels are. Thank you, Chase, for pointing that out. So let's have a redo. Let's pretend that didn't happen. Welcome back to the Binary Ninja live stream, everyone. The first live stream of 2021. I was off in my tweet. Yeah, yes, it is currently. Thanks, Amy. Currently, 2021. Today we're going to be talking about the Binjy Awards for 2020, not for 2019. Despite what my tweet said. So this is something we actually haven't, I don't think, even publicly announced or really talked about much. But one of the things we did over the break, we mostly took a break. We didn't work a whole lot. We were, as a team, really enjoying our holiday and some time off with family and avoiding work. But we did put together a list of sort of like our favorite plugins, our favorite contributors, and our favorite blog posts that people had done about Binary Ninja in 2020. And so the first thing I kind of want to do on the stream today is go over that. So we're going to look through the contenders. We're going to go talk about. I think we'll talk about the winners too. We'll see. I think we've got Kyle from the Vector 35 team will be joining us later on, and he helped put together this list. So we'll probably wait for him, and then we'll announce the winners of them. And we're still trying to figure out the prizes, but part of the prizes will be. These are the Binjy Awards. So as I mentioned in the last stream, we have our little Binary Ninjas here, and the winners will be getting Binjys. In fact, this one here, this is my one joke of the stream. Well, I'll probably have other bad ones, but that's okay. This is the commercial Binary Ninja. I don't know if you can tell. Like this is commercial, and these are non-commercial. This is commercial because it supports headless. Yeah, yeah, that one broke during testing, and so that one supports headless. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Anyway, back to the stream. So let's go ahead and go over. Like I said, there's 3 categories that we're looking at plugins. We've got 3 categories we're doing for the awards. We're doing best open source contributor. We're looking for best plugin, and we're looking for best blog post. And so I should have them all bookmarked here so we can see. Let's start with plugins. Why is that changing colors on me? If y'all are seeing that in stream, this appears to be flicking different colors. Let me know, and I don't know what I can do about it. We'll see, but it's showing up that way for me. So the first plugin, and this one I think was listed incorrectly because you'll notice this was not actually a plugin first released in 2020. This was one that was added to the plugin repository in 2020, so it looked like it when we first put it up. But I think we ruled that one out of consideration after further inspection. But I really do like the CryptoScan plugin. My favorite thing about this plugin is that it works on the IL. So it's not just based on the disassembly text or constants in the binary, like just searching for the raw binary for context. Yeah, so for context, FineCrypt is a plugin for IDA that will just look for constants used in encryption, hash functions, and encryption functions that have certain constants that they'll use in different parts of the algorithm. And those constants are semi-unique. There's some overlap, like you'll see some that are used in multiple, but there's also a lot of unique ones. And so you can find a bunch of crypto functions, which are great because you really don't want to have to manually reverse engineer crypto functions if you can help it. Welcome, AFAM. Let me know how to pronounce that. It's really nice not to have to manually reverse a bunch of crypto. So a plugin like this is super useful. But my favorite feature of it, again, this is not actually eligible for the awards this year. Is it scans? No, that's got the list. That's the constants. Modules, crypto scan. No, it's probably scan match, I bet. Nope, not it. My favorite part about this is that it will actually look for intermediate level constants, right? So I'll actually scan ILs looking for constants in the IL. So this is super cool. Like if you have an architecture where constants are loaded not via something in the file, but loaded via an immediate, and the constants split up into a load low and load high kind of operation, which is common on a lot of fixed width architectures. This will still find those, and I don't think any of the other constant scanning crypto finding kind of plugins will do that. So that's my favorite feature of that. But sadly, not eligible for the 2020 awards. So let's close that and move on. Elise02 wrote the Switch Binjy loader. This is for reverse engineering Switch games. Homebrew, I presume, if you reverse engineering homebrew. Yeah, converting a plugin to Python 3, unfortunately, Amy, this was just for new plugins this year. We did debate what level of we may change this in future years. So like if somebody writes a plugin, but they update it, or they like it's just been around for a while, because we haven't been doing these awards the whole time. So plugins have been around even longer. We don't want to penalize them too much. Or one other suggestion was do like a best of the decade, right? So like what's the best of all of the last decade? Since we're on a nice 2021 boundary now, like we could look back at the previous decade. I guess we could have done that last year too. We could have looked at everything before 2020. Whatever. So we'll see. We're like I said, we're making these rules up as we go. But this one handles a number of different file formats, and like having a really good binary view is, in a lot of ways, the fact that we support ARM is great, but there's a whole bunch of devices that use ARM. And so it's really nice to have binary view loaders, which will automatically map things in memory appropriately. They may create devices or certain pieces that are mapped a certain way. There may be symbols in certain file formats. There's all sorts of extra data you might want to get out of things. I don't know if that's showing up on stream, but I keep getting like these refreshes. I switched around how I'm streaming my video because it was kind of annoying me. So I guess this visual artifact I'm seeing is one of the side effects. Oh, y'all might not be seeing that because I think I'm capturing off a different interface I've duplicated, so that would be good. Next up, we have Vuln Fanatic. Vuln Fanatic, I think if there was an award for most updated plugin, would certainly be far and away the leader, because Marty is like, if you just look at like 155 commits, right? So this is a plugin that was created in 2020 and yet was updated just yesterday and has 155 commits. There's a lot of little things that it will do for you, and detect these kind of like common patterns for vulnerabilities. So actually, you know what? I haven't even really used it that much. I need to find a good router firmware or something to throw into it and play around with some of the features, because I love the frequency with which it's updated, and I like something that makes use of, for example, in this case, the tag system. Is like this is exactly the kind of thing that we wanted to see it used for. Like it's great for automatic plugins to generate a bunch of tags, but then the user can still manually go through the list. So that's a great plugin, and again, very frequently updated and maintained. BD Viewer. This is a favorite. So this is relatively new. This one only came out in December, and is a bindiff viewer. So this will let you take bindiff files. So there now exists. There is actually a branch of the Dynamics bindiff that will, it's not a branch, it's just a plugin within the main repo. I think that Christian's merged the branch, so there's a code base inside of bindiff that will generate bindiff or generate binary config files based on Binary Ninja. So the workflow in bindiff is like there's a couple main parts, right? So the first part is you have to generate an analysis of the binaries with things like basic block boundaries and the control flow. And historically, bindiff used IDA for that, and then they added some Geeter support, and then they added some Binary Ninja support as well. So you could, in the back end, create these bindiff files, and then you run bindiff itself on these two files, these two representations for the two binaries that you're diffing. Oh, I don't know if my audio might be picking up on here. I should probably turn this down, or at least have my backup headphones for checking my own audio. And then the final step is, okay, well, I've generated like this bindiff file. Like now I want to actually like look at the coverage, look at the things between them, and explore the binaries where they differ or where they're similar. And this is that piece of the puzzle, right? So there was already a piece. So this workflow is not quite as streamlined as you can get in IDA with bindiffing there, but it's come a long way, and it's totally, you can now end to end just with Binary Ninja generate bindiff. In fact, even the step here where you're using the UI to bindiff to generate the diff between two files, there's a command line version of that. One of the things I'll probably do on an upcoming stream is actually work through using both of those tools to generate some bindiff, because I think that's a pretty common and pretty powerful workflow. And I think it would be useful to show. So this is the bindiff viewer, like I said. So this takes the results of the bindiff is generated and lets you explore that within Binary Ninja. So you get the list of functions that are similar or different. You can go through, and it's also got the nice kind of heat map color code, so you can see how much has changed. So that is definitely a favorite. I like hex files because the hex files plugin it's something I was actually working on. I actually had I have like a scratch list of like plugin ideas and things that I work on in my own downtime, or when I want to not do whatever else task that I'm doing. And I kind of have one for this, which is, there's a lot of firmware files that are distributed as .hex, and there's the .hex format is really pretty simple in the level. It's just ASCII, and it's literally like offset and then hex values, but it can get a little bit more complicated because you can actually, the address values don't need to be in order. You can have different memory mappings, and so you kind of have to like parse through and figure out all the memory mappings first, create the mappings, and then you can back a binary view with them to sort of import them into Binary Ninja. And this tool change did a good job of implementing that, and I think it includes SREC and a few other very, very similar files that have some slight formatting differences as well. So we'll automatically kind of handle those, which is a cool feature for doing a lot of firmware work. This is a dumb plugin, except it's not a dumb plugin. It's actually a very useful plugin. I was shocked. I didn't believe that this was actually in 2020. It felt like 2020 clearly was a very long year. But sure enough, this was actually first committed in 2020. We double checked it. But the idea here is that it's another one by Toolchains. And this is a good, simple example architecture. So if you've got a very RISC-like, simple architecture that you want to see how you would lift in Binary Ninja, this is a really good demonstration. It's meant, in a large part to be a learning exercise. And it defines this sort of like simple architecture, shows some example firmwares that you could do with it. So I'm a big fan of anybody who's obviously encouraging other people to build architecture plugins. All right, dcopies. Now this one, there was some argument internally. You'll notice I actually have committed to this one, so I helped a little bit with this plugin. So I think there's a bit of a conflict of interest. So this one may not be in the running, but this is degobfuscate. I think I talked about it on last one of the previous streams. It essentially uses emulation at the IL level. We're getting there, Brinley. So these are just external. These are all the community plugins, right? So the award here is for the best third-party plugin that we're going over now. I have not even seen. Glenn has not shown me his Torque 3D architecture plugin. I would like to see that. No worries, Brentley. So the short summary is there's 3 categories. This is actually for the Binjy Awards. You can see our little Binjys. You also probably missed my joke about headless Binary Ninja for the guy who had his head come off one of the Binjys. It was, trust me, it was hilarious. Everybody laughed a ton. I promise. But Vector 35 plugins do not count for this. These are only third-party plugins, and more importantly, these are only plugins that were started in 2020. So, I do. I mean, part of the CTF. If it was released in 2020, it would be eligible, except for the conflict of interest thing. So, as I mentioned earlier, Glenn, I think you're gonna have to come on stream and show this plugin off. I think that's what I'm hearing. I wanna see how this worked. So Brinley, the idea is that there are 3 categories for the 2020 Binjy Awards. There's best plugin, best blog post, and best open source contribution. But these are all for people outside of Vector 35. If y'all want to do like an award for your favorite Binary Ninja feature from the Vector 35 people, I'd be down for that too. That'd be kind of fun as well. Yeah, see, Glenn just got signed up for work here. It's a little bit like the Hextrace plugin contest. It's a little more low key. We're not offering cash prizes. It's something we've kind of talked about, but part of it's that we just kind of threw it together real quick over the holiday break, and we didn't give people, if we want to do something big like the plugin contest with a big cash prize, we definitely give people more of a heads up and let them know like the time frame many months in advance if somebody really wanted to kind of do a big plugin release. But yeah, this is just kind of like showcasing like some of the community stuff. See, we already have the plugin manager, so people can find all of our plugins, which I think is one of the best things that the Hextrace contest does, is makes it easier to like find out about plugins. And I feel like to some degree we don't have that problem because they're all, or most of them are anyways, in the plugin manager. So we're going through our community plugins. That was the Switch Loader from Elise. Marty had Vuln Fanatic, the most updated one. Piston Miner had the BinDiff viewer that lets you view BinDiff files it's like the last piece you needed to be able to use Zynamex BinDiff end to end with Binjy. And then Toolchains had 2, one which was hex files that would view like firmware SREC hex text files from a lot of like Intel iHex. And then dumb, which was sort of an example architecture for a simple RISC system. And then degobfuscate was the last one, or the one that we're currently on, which was the IL emulator. Although, again, I think we're unfortunately sorry for Jamie because he did a lot of great work on this, but this is going to be not in the running because I was a little bit of a conflict of interest because I worked on it. Right? These Binjys are like priceless. And in fact, if you count the amount of hours and resin and time I put into bringing them, they're very expensive. I would have been a lot cheaper just to go into Thingiverse to get those things made. It's been a challenge. And I have little plaques so each Binjy holds a little plaque in his arm that has like best plugin or best contributor in their arms. And I'm still working on those because the first set I did of those during the curing, they got a little off. So I need to go back and do those a little bit more. But yeah, so I mean, like I think these Binjys are those are pretty legit awards, and we'll probably send out a few other things. In fact, one of the ideas somebody just suggested today, which I really like, was we might actually let the winners get their own emote in the Binary Ninja Slack, because if you're not in the Binary Ninja Slack, for a couple of reasons, we actually don't let community provide their own emojis into it. And so that's what we actually do is if there are several companies that have been big supporters of Binary Ninja and they get their own icons for their people so they can associate themselves with that company if they choose. And so that's kind of like a special thing. So that's actually something we might do for our winners of these awards. They could choose their own emote. All right. The last one then is the Binary Ninja Discord Rich Presence plugin. This lets you use, like how Discord can detect when you're playing a game. This will actually advertise what you're doing in Binary Ninja into a Discord if you're doing that. Although I think one of our guys mentioned, unfortunately, had some trouble with the plugin, but it's a clever idea. So these are the sort of finalists that we picked out. We went through the list. There were other plugins that were written this year, but these are the ones that internally we thought were like the best ones, and that we put for a vote. And as I said earlier, we're gonna reveal the winners, I think, live amongst when Kyle joins us later on in the stream. So join session support for. Was that actually in 2020 though? That may have been earlier. The shared session stuff in cloud. Well, like I said, if y'all want to do like a community Binjy award, I'll even put together the same prize package we give for the community ones for the Discord. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, that actually is a good idea. Yeah, it's a really good idea. Yeah, I think there's some more things we need to do with cloud, like making it easier to share links around, and that would be interesting to one click from Discord join into somebody else's session. I think one of the problems now is that we do require everyone to have their own login into cloud, and there's not as much of the anonymous shared session stuff, which we might want to expand on. But anyway, so that's plugins. Let's look at the blog posts next. So best blog posts of, again, 2020. All right, so this is an oldie but a goodie. This was actually a follow-on to, I think, probably the most popular Binary Ninja blog post of all time, which is the one that with Zombies did, that was death by, or 2,000 cuts with Binary Ninja. It's not actually 2,000 binaries, but it sounds good. It's a nice round number. But there was an old, I think it was legit BS challenge that Bryce did, that had a bunch of binaries that you were supposed to automatically build exploits for. So the idea was that it was really easy to exploit any one of them, but you had to build code to do it for you with different offsets and different stack cookie values, and so you had to script up the ability to pull stuff out. And early on, when we were still, I think, even in the beta with Zombies, did a blog post. I keep mixing handles and real names. I'm really bad about that. I never know which people prefer. But anyway, and so this was a follow up. This was okay, cool. This was 5 years ago, I think, or 4 years since the original post kind of came out, and there's been obviously a lot of improvements. And so uh, so yeah, I mean, you would have Binjy open. Yeah, like, well, if you do it with Cloud, you don't have to, right? Like, you could pull a session from Cloud if we're gonna like join me in Cloud. Actually, one of the plugins that we've been meaning to write is a share session in Cloud where you can take a BNDB you've got, and I mean, I actually don't think it is. So, like, you say it's silly. I actually don't think it is, Amy, because like I think Cloud actually has. Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, the Discord. Oh, I got you. Like a local binary. I don't know. I feel like you might be able to do it with some sort of browser extension, maybe even, or like you had a browser window. I don't know. I don't know enough about how the Discord stuff works, but I what I don't think is silly. I think it'd be really useful is a lot more like easier interaction and sharing and stuff with Cloud, where you can like send a link straight to part of a BNB you're looking at. So we are coming closer to the beta test period of Binary Ninja Enterprise, which includes collaboration. We may have the collaboration component by itself ready for testing pretty soon. I don't want to promise any dates, but like real soon. We're looking to start reaching out to some of the folks that have been on our beta list for that. So we should be doing, yeah, exactly, soon TM. And Glenn's one of the main people working on that, so you can bug him if you want to go faster. And the collaboration server also, that's really where we're going to have a lot more of the collaboration ability. But we have been debating running even though this is like a main feature of like the highest tier enterprise version of Binjy, we might be running a public collaboration server at some point for like CTF teams and other folks. So if you got multiple people using Binary Ninja, you're getting the stare. Yeah, I mean, you're just signing Glenn up for all the work here with the stuff, the great ideas you're having. I'm okay with this. So I mean, to be fair, that was already that's not a new responsibility. But yeah, doing some more things with collaboration and with Cloud and with being able to like link to binaries. I just think it'd be there's already like a couple of blog posts that people started to write where they're like linking to Binary Ninja Cloud embedded stuff where you can have like the whole function graph like embedded and it's like clickable and selectable and not just like a static screenshot. And I think there's a lot more we can do to like make reverse engineering like webified in a better way. So I do think there's stuff there. Sorry, I'm easily sidetracked, but that's okay. We got plenty of time. So Death by 2000 Cuts, make sure everybody hydrates, is like I said, it's a repeat of a very popular blog post, and it's a good read as well too, because it's a good summary of some of the changes, even like what's changed between 4 years ago or 5 years ago and lately. Karstein published SSA Explained back in October, and he's been kind of doing like these little just sort of explainer things. He's even said he's doing them partially as like an excuse to like force himself to write and force himself to be a little more rigorous about some of the stuff he's doing. And this is a really nice blog post because SSA is a topic that a lot of people get scared at. There's a lot of like program analysis, and you can get all like the fee and all these crazy concepts behind it if you read a lot of the literature. Karstein did a really good simplification. Like he really kind of explained it, and I also like it because that's just something that only Binary Ninja has. That the other RE tools that are out there don't have these forms, and so showing people like how they can take advantage of it, is showing them like a cool capability that's unique to Binjy. So of course, selfishly, I'm okay with that. What's up? And this is one I actually hadn't seen before. So this is a crackme's.kr, I think was there, opponent.kr, one of the .kr, reversing.kr challenges. And I'm always a big fan again of people like using all the different features. And so in this case, they're using the highlighting with like these gradients to show different bits of functionality, and generating like this really nice like large image. You can zoom out to any different level and get your screenshots there. And showing a bunch of different bits of that. Although I will say again, this is a great example where I'd love to see like more integration with cloud. Like it's super nice that you can actually just link to this raw binary in cloud and let people click around and explore it themselves. But it's really nice. Just a well done kind of clean write up as well was the team's consensus. This is one from early in the year. We tried not to make sure we excluded anything from too much earlier in the year. This is John Tottery, and who was the author of Paper Machete, which was a really cool older plugin that I think he released it. Was it ShmooCon or was it? I forget which one it was. That did some cool stuff with DerbyCon. That's right. It was way back in 2017. But he was basically taking binary ninja analysis and putting it into the Kraken database to be able to do like queries, and it's actually somewhat similar to some of the kind of research we've been doing and the functionality that Peter was working on that he came on a previous stream and showed off. But this like predates it by a good amount, so it was some cool research. So that's the same John Tottery behind that set 4, part 1 and part 2. Yeah, there's the 2 links here. And in this case, he wrote a blog post up just showing how you might kind of do a particular strain of bug finding, like if you have this particular CWE, and showing how again not just like how you would click around and do this, but how you can use the SSA forms and actually look for properties of this and build up a script to automate this, because that's like again that's our whole like pitch is that like you shouldn't. Once you've done something several times, like figure out how to automate it, and we want to make sure that our APIs are good and our representations of the binary let you do the things you want to do. So he built this the system and showed kind of how he used the APIs. So it's a great post demonstrating a lot of the APIs that you would use. Although it does predate high-level IL, although I don't think it would necessarily have changed very much, especially with the SSA form. I think just medium-level IL SSA is usually a lot of what you need. Finally, again, I think this one might be eliminated, unfortunately, for Jamie from the conflict of interest, because I had worked on it with him a little bit. But this is a blog post talking about this obfuscation technique that's being used in Go malware to obfuscate their strings. And you'll notice part of this is, like I said, part of my influence. We made sure that we use the Binary Ninja Cloud interface within the write-up, and so you can actually explore the disassembly and open up a cloud session to analyze that particular file right from the blog. So I of course am a big fan of that, but that's because I guess I made him do it, or asked him, encouraged him to do it as we were kind of working on this together. The other thing that I like about this post, again, not eligible unfortunately, but and I'd love to hear if y'all know of anything that we missed. Let me know, because we haven't officially made up our minds. So if we can get enough of the Vector 35 team to change their vote, if y'all have any other ones that we didn't find, it's possible we overlooked some. But my favorite thing about this is he actually shows the sort of like development process where he says, it was my first attempt to build a plugin that would do this, and describes how he was kind of trying to build a state machine to be able to parse and analyze the IL and work through it. And in the end, it got kind of complicated, and I talked to him. He even says here, and he was like, all right, let's just make this into a full-on emulator. And I think a lot of people get scared about that. Like, an emulator sounds complicated. It's really pretty easy, especially for something like low-level layout, where it's like there's 28 total instructions you have to implement, and you can actually do most things with far less than that. And the vast majority are like a one-liner to implement in an emulator. Like, they're really, really pretty easy. So I think it's a really nice kind of like way to like keep from scaring people away from stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Bradley. That's like, it's even like conference talks where people are like, I wrote this thing or built this thing, and like they only show you the final product and they leave out all the like the dead ends. It gives people, I think, that are starting out especially, a false sense of like inadequacy in the industry. And it's like, no, like all the experts like made a lot of mistakes, and like everybody like screws up a bunch. So I really like that he talks about like, I tried this thing and like it kind of started to work, but then it was like just not scalable and ended up ditching it and rewrote it this way, and this worked much better. And so I think that's a nice thing, even though unfortunately, again, not eligible. So that's the plugins there. Let's talk about the Binary Ninja contributors. And now this one, I don't want to spoil the winners yet, Exactly, right? Like yeah, you get that's billable time. That's research time when you make mistakes. Like if you already knew the answer, that's way too easy. It means you didn't have a good problem. Or like if you're not so we, for example, a couple years ago had like a fun week at Vector 35 where everybody dropped everything they were working on and we just built some other plugins. That's where like the snippet plugin and Kaitai plugin and the triage view and several other things kind of came out of. But one of our rules was like, if everything that we do succeeded, like we didn't try hard enough, like we didn't come up with hard enough, we didn't try to solve hard enough problems or do creative enough things. And so when like one of the ideas that we tried, which was to try it at the time, we were trying to do component identification, like look for boundaries between linker objects in a compiled binary. And the particular attempt that we made and the techniques we were using, like they weren't working. And like that's totally okay because it just, that's why you keep trying. Like research and keeping up with that is important. Oh, I think I hear Kyle has joined us. Ooh, are you Kyle? Okay, I don't think anyone can hear you yet. You say something?
Hello.
Oh no, you're on stream. Okay, people can hear you.
Awesome.
Everybody hear Kyle. Let me finish going through this, and then we'll switch over to the other view when we're gonna demo your stuff. But you can just listen in. You should be able to see, I think, the stream
Yeah, I
as
can
well
see
now.
everything.
So cool. Yay! All right, so we're on the last category. This is and I haven't revealed any winners yet, Kyle, just for context. So I figure
Okay.
I'll let you announce the winners of each one
Oh, thank
live.
you.
So here is how we judged best open source contributors. And like I said, I don't want to kind of give away, but we can look at so Andrew L is our Vector 35 employee, so not eligible. So is Jeff, so is me, and so is Rusty. So what we're looking for are contributions that were not those folks. Is it community commits? What's the best way to actually? Is there a better view? Let me think. So that's ARMv7, and again, it would be at ARMv7. We had ARM64, which you see had even more activity, and we have the binary integer API module itself. Oh man, that one's taking a little bit. So yeah, well, we did like one big merge with the architecture modules that I don't remember. I think it was Rusty that did that. So you can see that was the initial commit from our internal modules, but the rest of the commits are pretty accurate. So these are all the people who actually contributed to the open source plugins here. So there's some containers. We've got Nship here. Yeah, he doesn't put his full name. So Nick is certainly looking pretty good there on the ARMv7. And I chose ARMv7 and AR64 because I think they've had the most contributions. We may have had a few very small contributions on other architectures. And then we've certainly got some activity over here from Brinley in chat, from Europe. Toshi added a few here. So there's a couple contributions there. Let's see if this is done. There we go. So you can see, yeah, these are all Vector 35 people committed to the API, so we got to exclude them from our search. Of course, we've got a bunch of Josh Watson commits in the API, although most of those tend to be a little bit further back. So there's a couple other committers here. Yeah, y'all need to. That's the biggest problem with this COVID stuff is all the CTF teams can't get together and play in person. And all these like alums can't go back to their alma maters and hang out. So, all right, Kyle. I think we have covered all of the candidates. And before we continue, does anybody in chat want to nominate anything we missed? Is there something we might have forgotten? Speak now or forever hold your peace. We probably should have like tweeted this, I guess. We could have, in case if we miss a really, really obvious one that we think should have been a top contender, we can just add on another winner potentially. I have one spare Binjy. I have four good ones that I think are like good prints, and then I have a couple that like have had some minor deformities, like only one of the little strands on there, or the one guy that part of the reason I propped them up here is because one of them has a mild deformity that he doesn't stand on his own. He needs to be propped up. So that's probably why I've got him there. The best headless script gets the headless Binjy. That would be fantastic. Maybe I'll give him. We can throw in both. Yeah, or do
I
a
like
separate
that
one.
idea.
Yeah, I did. You did miss my joke. I did make a headless Binjy joke earlier. I even had like a magnifying glass. I was very very pleased with that. So yeah, I don't remember. I have to go back and look through which one of the scripts were headless. I don't think any of these were truly headless. I think they all made use of the UI. I mean, technically, a binary view like hex files or switch could be used in both. The architecture could also be used in both. This is not really. Yeah, I wouldn't say any were particularly well suited towards headless necessarily. Yeah, I mean, I think headless is. I'm pretty happy with that split. So it just gets it. Well, see, there you go. If you want, get yourself a Binjy next year, I mean, you gotta publish some of those scripts, then you can get yourself a sweet Binjy. Maybe we'll do something different. All right.
Limited time collector's edition Binjys.
Yeah, exactly. Each year gets a different color or something different, different print. So, Kyle, do you want to reveal the what order do you want to do this in?
Let's see. Maybe contributions last.
Yeah, I think so. Let's amp the drama up for that one. How about I've got them up here with plugins first. You want to do the best plugin first?
All right, best plugin first then. This one was actually no surprise to me. There was a lot of work put into this one, and a lot of people are going to get a lot of use out of it over the next couple of years.
I think so too. You want to announce it? No.
Yeah.
Just make him sweat
The
a little bit
best
longer.
2020 new plugin for Binary Ninja.
I need a sound pad.
By our vote is the Binjy.
Yay! Congratulations, Piston Miner. Yeah, that was my vote. I think that one won pretty handily. Was definitely the highest, and part of that's because I think we've gotten asked a lot over the last few years, like, hey, when is there going to be a bin diff? I'm still looking at the Binjys, my camera. Yeah, part of this we get asked a lot, like, when's there going to be a bin diff or a bin diff like thing, and I still think there's a lot more that could be done in the bin diff space. And I know, like Yaxon's been talking about support like with ILs and doing like a diaphragm thing. So I think there's interesting work to be done there. But yeah, I'm super happy for that. And again, you'll notice like this is like a robust plugin, like generating like the UI components, parsing out the BDIF data. Like this is a serious plugin. So that was awesome work. Yeah. So good work, both Christian, obviously, thank you, and the rest of the former Dynamics folks that are at Google working on BinDiff, and all the ones that still aren't at Google who worked on BinDiff, as well as Piston Miner for building up that plugin. So congrats. Let's close down our other ones. We'll leave that one open. All right, so blog posts. We had some good blog posts. There's a lot to choose from.
Yes, and just pulling it up here.
That's fine.
The best one, though, the one that won by our poll was extremely exhaustive, very thorough. There was definitely a lot to read. I could just keep throwing hints out there.
I'm just going to each page and looking at scroll bars to see if that helps people figure out maybe which one.
Lots of use of great screenshots.
There's no votes. I see. It's not as fun when you can't see if people actually are waiting for it or not. Like, I really want to know, is the trolling working, or are they?
I might butcher his name, if that's a hint as well. The one that won by our vote is the one on medium.com by John Tortorhei.
Tottery, John. I think it's Tottery, but yes. Yeah, that was one of the ones from early in the year. Again, both a good, like, write-up, well-documented, and also, like, a nice bit of code. So, like, you could argue that this is a plugin as well. So actually, maybe this one counts as a headless plugin. You know what? Maybe he needs to be getting the headless Binjy. Okay, good. See, oh, thank you, Amy. Yeah, Amy says troll was successful. Drawing it out there was drama. There was anticipation.
Good.
I think of anybody read Brandon Sanderson? I think of anticipation spread. Sorry, anyway.
I just read the first.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good. So this is actually a headless script. So I think the comment earlier about including a headless Binjy, that could easily go to John for that. Yeah, there we go. Congratulations, John. Well done. Well done. All right. The divide by the
it looks like it's part of a 5-part series of which only 2 are published so far.
Well, then no credit. He's had a whole year. It's already a year later. Oh wait, am I scrolling into other posts? Yeah, it just keep going. Thanks, Medium. Yeah, you're awesome. Yeah, we got to get on it. Maybe this award will motivate him. Oh, yeah, Brinley. I think this script, at least the early version of the script that I saw when I was looking through it just now, was a headless script. So he's actually opening up the file via headless. I mean, you don't really have to, but yeah, that's right. 2/5 of Binjy. He definitely deserves the headless one, right? Sorry, John. You've got 3 more blog posts to go before you're eligible. And then if he does it, like if you write the other ones this year, how do you count it? Be hard to say.
We can just keep sending body parts until he finishes the series.
cut Binjy into little pieces. He's actually really hard. I still don't know how this thing broke, because like this plastic, like I let my son, this was already broken, he's like, can I throw this on the ground? I was like, yeah. I mean, so he like threw this on the ground. I figured like a thumb would snap off or something, and no, like this thing's pretty solid. So I'm still not sure how the head came off on that one, but anyway.
So then, contributors.
Oh, that's right. I guess we have one more. Yeah, I guess we got that one. I've seen a couple guesses already.
Do I have to scroll up in chat here?
Well, there was a guess of Josh. There was a guess of Yerp. There was a guess of... Is that it? Was there any other guesses?
Well, Josh did make some good contributions this year.
On the API.
So did Yerp.
Mm-hmm. And
but the person who won for their outstanding commits in multiple repos.
Ooh, interesting. So it's not just one. Okay.
They contributed to both ARMv7 and the Binary Ninja API.
Okay.
There's not just one winner.
That's right. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. So that's true.
And we're not going to say that everyone's winners, even though in our hearts you are. The other person who won for their commits in the ARM64 repo. Their significant contributions to lifting in ARM64.
I mean, I think you can just announce them. I think this is a hard one to make people guess too much on.
The 2 winners are NSHP and YRP604.
So, Yerp and Nick, I checked people's profiles to see if they've got their full name there before I call it the real name. Yerp and Nick, congratulations. Yeah, you were tied. We couldn't split. We couldn't decide between your commits. They were both awesome. and we were very very glad to have your contributions. Um, so to be fair, yeah, the most confused by Biter Ninja employee. I think there's also most confused Biter Ninja employee. So you could also go back in Slack and look at which amongst the Vector 35 employees has been wrong the most. Because I think I'd have a pretty good shot at that. Like I like to say the answers and then let Brian or Peter or Rusty come in and say the correct answer afterwards. Yeah, Yerp is his name, so we're going with Yerp. Yeah, so congratulations to all the winners. We have 4 winners, and like I said, we have four intact, healthy Binjys. Although arguably, maybe one of the headless one goes for the blog post. But we'll be sending out. That's another reason I need to print more of the nameplates that they hold. So yeah, that's exciting. Congrats to all of our winners. Good job, everybody.
And thank everyone for their contributions to the Binary Ninja community.
Yeah, indeed. Like these, we actually get a lot of people that ask us what's the product's great. I really love Binary Ninja. What can I do for you? And the answer is almost always like write blog posts, write plugins. Like these are the things that help us the most. Because when other people, when you get value out of like a plugin you've written, somebody else probably does too. And so that definitely, yeah. Let's get some claps in the chat. Thanks, Amy. It's a great idea. Let's see. Where's my? Oh, it's gonna take me way too long to find it. I only have my most common ones, so I can do my facepalm. That's the only one that I have conveniently up. But yeah, so good work, everybody. I definitely think we're gonna continue this trend. We're gonna keep up these awards, or like I said, we may even go back and do like a roundup of multiple years because there's been a lot of other good plugins, or do some other categories like most frequently updated, or other things that might be eligible beyond just this year. But yeah. Ooh. Now Kyle, the other reason you're on stream.
Yes.
Are you ready? Or
I checked and it does in fact still work.
Okay.
The demo is alive.
Whew, that's good. That's first step. I'm glad you mentioned that, Amy. SCC is it's like the I think it was like a politically incorrect phrase. Like it's the lesser known feature of Binjy, and we've actually gotten a request from somebody else to like talk about SCC on one of our future streams. So I think an SCC stream is coming. I feel a little bad because like there's some outstanding bugs in SCC that we're like, yep, that's been a bug for so long, but we feel like it's kind of tangential to most of the core Binjy stuff, so we tend to not prioritize some things for it. But yeah, so some are already know, and they've kind of been hung out there. But SCC's and for context, SCC is the shellcode compiler. So if you're in Binjy and you go to edit, somebody even recently was like, I heard about you've got this thing called SCC. Like, how does that work? It's here. You can just write C and compile it for all of these architectures and all these platforms, and it just works. And it has these, some of which work, and not all of which do. I think we removed all the ones that are known to not work. But there's some command line flags to SCC itself that you can still hit. If you... Yeah. So there's actually some command line options here which are not real. Like at some point we wanted to build those features, but they don't yet exist. So the ones that are in the UI are actually ones that you can really do. But it's got some kind of cool features, and it's really nice for just little standalone stuff. So anyway, I don't want to. It depends on what you're working on. Like if you're working on any kind of shell coding, hence the name shell coding compiler, and then also the documentation for it's right here too. So does that work, or do I need to go? I need to go here. Yeah, there it is. The documentation's, it's got a little simple file. The examples are probably the most useful thing here, and the runtime library if you want to see what things are included. But it's got some nifty tricks up its sleeve. So yeah, all right. But back to Kyle. Kyle also, my goal is to get everybody from Vector 35 on the stream at some point and spread it around, so they're not like, for the people that don't want to be on camera, they don't have to do it very much. But all right, good. It sounded like I just heard the ding, it's a screen sharing, right? So let me switch over to this. Okay. Let's see if I can. Close
All
enough.
right, yeah. I see. Okay, I see Binjy on the stream now.
Yeah. Yeah, it has its own
Cool.
little minimal libc, right? Which is helpful.
All right. So I have been doing a lot of dwarf parsing, getting debug info in general into Binary Ninja and applying it to binaries and making it extensible so people can write their own debug info plugins and um, all that sort of great stuff
And
you've hopefully come to expect from us.
that actually came up on Twitter recently, right? Because somebody was like, I was using the dwarf import plugin and it had, there's problems. And I was like, oh yeah, like part of the reason why is like it's been for like the last, I don't know, month and a half, maybe, I don't know, a while. It's been in the process of like rewriting that. So it kind of got like finished. It was a proof of concept that worked. And then immediately Kyle set to work on like rewriting it entirely in Rust, among other things, so that it's and then I think the most interesting thing though is what you mentioned at the end there, like the sort of like the debugging information refactor. That's probably the coolest part about this.
Yeah, so you can write debug info plugins just as you would write a architecture plugin or platform plugins or any of those sorts of things. And yes, you heard Rust.
Glenn, it's Rust. You can do that. You just want to make a point, or maybe you just want to use the emoji.
We found the best dwarf parsing library out there is Gimli, which is written in Rust, which makes sense because it's a dwarf.
Oh yeah, there's all sorts of good, good naming
But
in that.
anyways, to the demo here, we've got a sample binary.
Well, hold on. Let's before we get the rest of the demo. There's a couple like implications there, right? So, as you said, like exposing debug information earlier is super important because if you've got debugging information like Dwarf, you don't want to have it just as a plugin that like, okay, I open up a binary Ninja analysis runs, and then I apply some Dwarf information. Like that doesn't make any sense. You want to be able to do it earlier. So that's a lot of like this refactor and change we're working on and that's super important because there's other formats, and of course, as you said, in the Binjy way, the Binary Ninja way, anything that we do, we want to make an API that's accessible for third parties too. And so that debugging API, like you can provide list of function starts, function types, symbols, names, all that stuff before Binjy's analysis kicks off, which lets you get more accurate analysis kind of as a result.
And a lot faster too. I was looking at it, and the dwarf info out of the binary took less than a second to parse.
Yeah.
Out of Bash, I have Bash compiled with debug symbols, and Binary Ninja analysis took about 2.5 minutes. A lot of which was, of course, building all the ILs, but
I'm still trying to figure out what machine you're running that on. Like I've never had a Bash take me that long to analyze.
Remotely. On a remote machine.
Okay, like there's I feel like there's something else going on there. Like I'm gonna kick this one off just for kicks because I feel like this is like a less than 20 second. And this is a VM with like two.
It's also a dev build. It's not a.
All right.
That's not a production build.
That's fair. Okay, so Amy actually had a good question. First, there's definitely some excitement there about Rust in the chat. And she asked about grabbing local variable dwarf info for a given function.
Right. So part of what this does is it takes out all the type info before your binary is analyzed so that when we're doing the initial analysis, type propagation will happen more accurately and more correctly. But for local variables, as you see with the dwarf plugin that's already available in Python, it does apply names and types to local variables within functions. I haven't actually gotten that to work yet in the remake of it, but it will be there.
Yeah, I'll put that link in chat as well for the existing Python one, because that one, although there are some, you have to be on Python 3.8 or the versioning matters, I think, on the PyElf tools or whatever it is, that one of the
PyElf
dependencies.
tools, you have to use a slightly older version.
Yeah, it's a little bit fragile right now, and we're probably not even going to fix it because, again, like this new write's going to be much better.
Yeah, the one that's available actually completely chokes on local variables depending on whether the stack offset is 0 or like -8 for saved RBP.
I have to count out my total time. My bash finished. My total time looks like it was about 50 seconds.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more. Don't we have like a total? I thought we had a total time, but it looks like each analysis update you're going to get the times. Yeah.
Is that your
55.
built-in bash?
Yeah, I just pull whatever bash.
Oh, I custom compiled bash, so it's.
Yeah, you may have
bigger.
some other features. This is probably true. So yeah, Amy also asked about like source line information. Is that being pulled out? Well, actually, here, why don't you continue with the demo first, and then we'll talk more about, because I think some of these questions will probably be answered with the demo.
So the demo I have for you today is actually just how to view the dwarf info inside the binary without applying it. So this was a binary opened with default settings. You can see all the functions over here. And the one thing I want to note is the only two functions that were in source code were bar and main. All these other functions were added by the compiler. So if we right click and do dwarf dump or go to tools and run dwarf dump.
No, if we hit Control P
yes.
and type dwarf dump. Come on, use the command palette. Yeah.
And you can see that it's recently used.
Yeah, there you go.
We get a graph of all of the dwarf info in the binary. So to go through it a little bit, we have a graph root because you can have multiple compilation units for multiple files that you throw at GCC. You even have all of the flags you throw at GCC. This is not, in fact, bash, because we would not even be able to see most of the graph for bash. And you have a whole bunch of other info, some of which is not yet properly displayed. But what's nice about this is you can go through it, and I already know where these are. You can find all the subprograms identified in the dwarf info, which are only the subprograms, the functions that were in source. So in this case, we have bar and we have main. For each of these subprograms, if it has parameters, it shows the parameters as children of the program's node, just as it is stored in dwarf.
Yeah, so this is really just a visual. This is a little bit like the Kaitai plugin, right? Decomposing this binary format. You're decomposing all the dwarf information and just using the FlowGraph API, because it's kind of, I heard your kitty. That's perfect.
Yeah, we have a cat visitor here. Hello.
That's awesome.
Let's see. Yeah, so dwarf dump displays it in a tree in your terminal, and that's horrible to read. The way I wanted to view it was as a flow graph with our API.
Amy did say exactly, I've been parsing dwarf dump. Yeah.
And one of the things that's really nice about this is dwarf is stored in a tree structure, so the children of a subprogram is its parameters, but it can also reference things outside of the exact tree structure. So the type isn't actually a child of the parameter. It's totally elsewhere in the graph. So now I can just link to that type that it's referencing.
Because this is like a Binjy flow graph, and so you can have these references that you can just...
Exactly. It's implemented as go-to labels and labels that nice. You can jump around between.
So again, for context, like Binary Ninja has this built-in like FlowGraph API that just you don't have to do any of the layout. It's a little bit like Graph, you're just defining all these nodes, but then you're also getting like the ability to jump to a node that's not actually connected necessarily, right? Like the graph structure doesn't have that reference, but so I really like how so the first iteration of this demo didn't have that. It didn't have some like syntax highlighting and some of the other features, and like it's come along. It's a pretty nice little representation.
Yeah, and it lets you really see how the debug info is stored in the binary. So when you're reversing something, eventually, even if you have the dwarf info already applied, if you want to poke around and see where that came from, or maybe there's a bug in how we apply it and you actually want to look at the info itself, you don't have to go into your terminal and run dwarf dump. You can look at it in Binary Ninja.
I don't know about whether the flow graph supports arbitrary back edges. Do you know that, Kyle? I think it does.
Sure.
I mean, if you mean arbitrary back edges, like can any node, I mean, any node can be connected to any other node. The only limitations on it were it was single entry. I'm trying to remember if that's one of the ones that Peter changed in his recent flow
It
graph
can be
improvements.
multi-entry, but our display algorithm isn't.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So there's some minor like usability issues when you do that, but you can now have multiple entry points into it at least.
Yeah.
And we also still have like some open bugs. We'd like to improve the layout. There's certainly some opportunity for, but like the cool thing is like whenever we improve our layout implementation, it'll work for all the plugins that use FlowGraph. It'll work for all of our disassembly graphs and all the other stuff like automatically. It'll just be in fact we might even make it like a pluggable layout thing. We'll see. There's been some debate as to that, but at the very least, any of the improvements come. Oh, the other thing I think you're using too is the latest version have more power over lines, right? So you can choose different edges and edge types and dotted, dashed, and colors and all that stuff. So it's not just like true, false, blank. So the earlier version was a little more simple, and I think it's also part of what Peter did. And I think this is like a kind of cool thing that we like. A general philosophy I think we have is that we build debugging visualization tools for like Amy's in. Like for ourselves, like this is useful for you as you're building support for Dwarf, right? And as you're like trying to like understand the format and then build the annotations in, like pull it out. Another great example is Rusty's high level IL debug reports, right? Like the fact that we can have those flow graph reports, like a collection of flow graphs that you could select between to show like the iteration something over time. That's just because Rusty wanted it to be able to visualize the stuff he was working on for high level IL to get the decompiler working. So yeah, no, data lines are already in, like they're there now. I don't remember if it's in the that should be in latest stable. So I think just the API docs on online. If you look up the FlowGraph API, it should has edge style. I think it's called. Yeah, edge style, and you can do color. You can do width and then style, which includes several forms of like dotted and dash stuff. So yeah.
I think he's also planning to add grouping, so you can group nodes together and give them like a label or something.
When you can like group and collapse, like that'd be
awesome. Yeah. And then you could group together namespaces and classes, or even just little structs in the dwarf dump here.
Yeah.
But I do want to highlight here that there is file line and column.
Pun intended, by the way, because you highlighted it. Get it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's there. It's just a matter of parsing it and putting it into a tooltip or figuring out some other creative way to display it.
Can you get to this data programmatically right now from the console? I don't think I've asked you that, so maybe the answer is no. But
you can get the graph and traverse the graph. But that's just the display graph. There's no API. I'm not intending to open an API that'll wrap the raw dwarf info.
I mean, Gimli's already available, right, for other people if they just want to do their own like raw parsing. But
Gimli's not a great abstraction layer, but it is a blazing fast parsing library.
Yeah, I wonder if it makes sense to expose any of the raw data any other way.
So the way that the data will be exposed is that with the debug info plugins, there's a debug info class that you populate the information into. So you make a debug info class, and what you're doing is you're just populating a list of functions, a list of types, parameters on those functions, return types of those functions, and then again, eventually the local variables for functions. So when analysis is done, if you chose to parse and apply dwarf info, you can see everything already done for you in Binjy, and as you traverse functions and how you would normally use the API. But you'll also be able to query the debug info as its own object associated with the binary view, so you can see what exactly the debug info gave.
Independent of the analysis that Binjy did afterwards. Now, does that include line numbers as well? Is
that will
part of it? Okay. Well, there you go. I think that answers an earlier question than the name you had too. So.
And what's also pretty nifty about this, I think, is since you're just appending, let's say, to a list of functions and types and all that stuff, you can have multiple type debug info plugins at once, all contributing to your file. So if you're compiling a Go binary with Dwarf, if that's even possible.
Well, like a PE with a PDB and Dwarf is, right? Like I think you can do that, although I don't know what format it's in, but because I know.
So if you have multiple debug formats in your binary, or if you were giving me the example the other day of writing a Go debug info plugin, you could do that on top of any built-in debug info.
Yeah, because there's a couple of like Go deobfuscation plugins right now. In fact, the one that I showed, the Go deobfuscate, that uses the emulator, it relies on a different Go deobfuscation plugin that pulls debug info, and because Go has a whole bunch of metadata that you kind of can't get rid of, or it's hard to get rid of because actually the runtime needs it, and so you can pull that information in, and yeah, that's like a perfect place for the debug class that you're talking about there, where you'd be able to like, because it also makes your analysis more accurate, right? Because you can say, I know these functions the function starts are correct right at the very beginning, before you even kicked off a linear sweep, and it would just make everything else both faster and more accurate if you've got that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no, I think this is a good change.
One of the things, I think the last thing I want to highlight here is I'm going to go ahead and open a slightly more complicated binary. Takes a minute to load the graph because it's pretty big. As you can see, you got the plaid.
Oh yeah. We're going to plaid.
It shows you namespaces, so you can break things down by namespaces. But if we find string in here, I think it's this first one.
You can use left and right arrow keys too to like.
Yeah, you can
distinctly navigate
zoom in a little bit. You can just go left or right to highlight the different lines and go down to what you want to go to. If I zoom out, you guys won't be able to see this, but I'm just trying to find the string class, which is right here. Cool. So string is obviously not defined in my source.
Right.
In my source.
That's a part of the language.
So yeah, so it shows the file in which it's declared. It shows the line and column where string is defined. And it shows all the member functions and types of string. So this subprogram here, called mdata, whatever that does within in the standard library, it has no address. It doesn't actually live in our binary, but it's a member of string, and we can still see it. So this is just a little thing about dwarf info that's interesting. With the dwarf info, you'll actually be able to see functions that aren't in your binary, but were part of the original, like unused code, basically.
Yeah.
But only in this view. It won't actually be applied to your binary.
I think that has interesting implications, right? Like a lot of problems you think of, like game hacking or for whatever reason, where you've got like a version of a binary with symbols or with debug and another version without it. You could conceivably see some dead code that like later on gets re-enabled, and you'd be able to like pull out the type information from like a totally previous thing and still apply it to the new one potentially. So that's cool to know. It's a good tip. Yeah. See, Amy's like, yep, that sounds familiar. I got a lot of problems like that. Yeah. No, and it's in a lot of several domains actually. I've seen that happen. So I think that's a more common thing than people realize. Yeah, OS internals. That's another good example too.
That's pretty much all I've got for you guys today.
So I'm going to ask you some questions about the Rust side of it too, because excuse me, a couple people asked about that. Like this is a broader than just a single Rust plugin we're shipping too, right? Like this also means the a little slightly more official release of the Rust API potentially.
So we've talked about open sourcing the Dwarf plugin, the Dwarf debug info plugin. And yeah, the consequence of that would mean that we have to also release the Rust API.
Which is always kind of the plan anyways. You know, I mean, anybody that's asked, if you're in chat and you haven't already gotten access to the Rust plugin or Rust API, there has been a Rust API for a while, and you added to it for some of what you were doing, because it was originally focused primarily on architecture lifting, right? I think that was its main strength. Less used for analysis, less used for some of the other Binjy APIs. But yeah, the goal is.
This is actually running in Rust right now. So I had to create the flow graph API in Rust, as well as a lot of other APIs. The original Rust API was written by Ryan before Rust 2018 came out. So there's a lot of old conventions which also have been getting updated. And there are still several warnings of, hey, this is deprecated, don't use this anymore, that I have to go through and figure out how to fix those up.
So, Amy, to answer your question, because Kyle is plumbing through all this information as a debug, that's what he said. He's making like this higher level, like Binary Ninja debug API, where you can, or debug info, what you call it?
Debug info.
Yeah.
That's what I've been calling
it. So because there's a debug info API, you can get to that info from any of the other APIs too. It's just not just available to Rust. Like you can now write a plugin in Rust for all sorts of different things. But yeah, I mean, you can use a plugin commands, but you don't really want to, if you want to explore the internals of another plugin, you couldn't do that necessarily very easily if it wasn't plumbed out. And in this case it is, because there's a debug info class. Yeah, you'll be able to get the info from other languages. I think, right, Kyle? Is that's a fair?
Yeah, no, everything is written in the core in C++, and then there are just bindings to C, which allows us to bind to Rust and Python.
So and again, because you abstracted this generic debug info, and this Rust is implementing this debug info and then populating it, you will be able to query those from everything else.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know no Rust. I know no Rust at all. Amy, so I'm with you on that. Like, I've seen other people write it. That's the extent of my Rust.
I have learned a lot of very scary Rust features. The Rustonomicon has been my go-to book for a lot of this.
Rustonomicon. Wow, that does sound scary.
It's for writing unsafe Rust.
Yeah, it's the keyword you have to add specifically, right? Anytime it won't compile, you're like, just make it unsafe, and that'll work.
Well, any call to C is unsafe, and this is all calling into C.
So to be fair, our entire API is going to be full of that. Yeah, there's just only so much you can do.
Everyone else using the API, the goal is you'll be writing safe Rust, but you'll be calling into functions that are unsafe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the Python API is still going to be the first class, probably plugin API for the foreseeable future. But I would love to see, more public Rust plugins. Yeah, so for things like debug info, for architectures, for binary views, where performance matters. Although it's less true now for binary views that we have like segments. Before we had perform read and perform write in the binary views. It was really slow if you implemented a Python binary view. Now that it's done via segments, and you're sort of just mapping the data regions, it's not a bottleneck anymore to build a binary view in Python. But yeah, there are still definitely some things where you can get dramatic speed ups to use something else. So I think it'll be nice to have. And C++ is fine. Like there's in fact the hexagon architecture plugin that just got released by Google. I just noticed relatively recently is native, and so like you'll get better performance out of that. But I think Rust will be a really nice sweet spot where it's faster but a little bit easier to write, kind of in between C++ and Rust, and Python. But we'll see. One other related comment. One of the things that we are working on now for the next release is the way that, because so like Rust plugins and C++ plugins, we have to deal a lot more with binary compatibility. and versioning, when the API changes and you update your Binjy and can the plugin run, and with a native plugin that just tends to crash because you're just like linked in and like try to load it, oh, it didn't work, crashes. You don't have like Python exceptions that can be more easily caught. And so we're building on a better system for detecting API versioning and being able to have like version compatibility. So you'll have a plugin that if it doesn't work, at least it will just fail cleanly, and will tell you like, yes, I can do it.
Related to that, writing plugins in Rust, and I've written, I think, 2 example plugins that are in the repo that's hidden away for now, is really, really nice. You get the full back traces from Rust. So when something goes wrong, you don't have to, I mean, Python errors are okay, but I really like the Rust errors. They're very nice.
That sounds like another stream topic. It sounds like you're gonna have to come on and show us how to Rust your. Well, maybe we'll have like you and Ryan and Rusty or some subset come and do some Rust streams. That would be
I
be helpful.
can tease a Rust plugin.
Oh yeah, show us what you would show off once it's public. Yeah, so great. That'll be really nice to. The binary incompatibility stuff was bugging us too, and we realized that was something. So that's actually, I think, Rusty's current task that he's working on right now. So we should see some improvements in terms of loading native plugins.
So here's the flow graph example that I had. It's 52 lines. It's exactly the. Here, let me zoom in for you guys.
Just say I have it small too.
It is exactly the same as the Python flow graph example, except in Rust. So you have all your includes up here at the top. And then defining a graph is as simple as making a new graph, creating some disassembly lines. This demonstrates how you can break a disassembly line into different tokens. You create a flow graph node, which is just a basic block in your flow graph. You set the disassembly lines, and eventually you add it to the graph. You can see down here the different outgoing edge styles, dot, dash, dot line, and user defined branch.
Yeah, I mean that looks pretty similar than the Python example. We did get a question in chat about whether this version you're working on has readable Rust docs or not. Is that something that's
readable Rust docs, as in the doc gen that they use for Rust? I have a lot of to-dos of comments I've written that I need to actually just Google how to write the Rust doc strings. So there's going to be documentation.
My order of preference would be finish the Rust plugin to be, or sorry, the dwarf plugin is number one thing. So I think having that by default would be nice. And going along with that, we'll be fixing the binary compatibility because we'll be shipping the plugin with it. 2 is getting the API released. 3 would be making it prettier, and
right.
There's also missing features still in the Rust API, right? Like we are gonna push it out, even though it won't have full complete API coverage. I think because we'd rather have it's been hidden away for far too long with or even on the current GitLab, it's just taken a while. So I think just getting it published is better than getting it waiting until it's totally complete. So I think we'll get that out there. But
on this repo right now, also for those interested, the only weird thing you have to do for making a Rust plugin that works in Binary Ninja is this little flag right here when you're compiling.
The comment is go document the C API first, then you can just copy it to Rust. Yeah, I built the system that generates documentation for it, but I'm the worst person in the company to do C documentation probably, so I don't know if that's going to happen too soon. We'll see. We do need to get better at that though.
Yeah, I've been doing my best to document along the way, but there will be a polishing effort needed when it's released.
Yeah, this is fair. Our native docs are not nearly as robust as the Python ones.
And actually, you can see right here in GitHub, that the C bindings for Rust is like half the code right now, so it's
Yeah.
very incomplete.
Yeah. Cool. I didn't have anything else that I was gonna necessarily cover. I think I wanted to stick to those two topics. So, anybody else in chat have any
Oh,
questions? Oh, we're gonna have infinite recursion. I love it. That's fantastic. Guess we can go back to this one. I can, hold on here. Let me add a little. Okay. Now let me crop it. Filter. I think it filters. I forget. Here, I'm gonna add you to it too.
I just see infinite me in the.
I mean, I'm okay with
hangout
that
here.
too. Like, what more do we need? It's infinite. This would take way too long. All right, I'm not gonna mess with that. If I had more time, like you can't drag and drop it. You have to type numbers for the crop. I'll deal with that later. I do need a copy of the Hangouts that I can like resize and drop somebody else on top of the shared screen. So yeah, here's the example flow graph stuff in the Python documentation. But I think you were talking about like an actual it's an actual example plugin though in the Python examples folder, right? Oops.
Oh no, I copied the code you're
Oh,
showing.
it was just that one. Okay, this is the one. Yeah. So it's not quite as concise, but it's still pretty succinct.
Yeah. This doesn't have the includes and all that, and you need a main
Yeah.
function
Yeah.
in Rust. So.
Yeah. Well,
But it's still pretty neat.
yeah, cool. Yeah, that's I think both the dwarf. If I had to pick, I actually think I might be most interested in the debug info re-architecture and how that lets people add debug information earlier in the analysis process. I think that's actually, in a lot of ways, the most useful, biggest change kind of coming out of this. I think the REST API is going to be great. I think having the full dwarf plugin to be awesome. But I think kind of one of those like realizations along the way of like, oh yeah, we need to actually have better like a better debug API where you can provide debug information. I think it'll be pretty cool.
So one of the outstanding, possibly internal pull requests we have is the callback before analysis begins.
Right. Actually, I think that
And
one's already reviewed and did it even land yesterday? Or if not, it's about to land.
one of the consequences of the debug info is you can make a debug info plugin and it will run before analysis, and you're just handed the binary view. So if that never landed, or eventually you can hack a debug plugin to do whatever you want to do to a binary view. I thought that was funny when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, Brinley. I think for your use case, so Brinley is also agreeing that debug API would be very useful. I think there's several use cases where people have some extra debugging information for OS files, for firmware images, for there's a lot of different domains where maybe you've got a binary view or something that looks like a binary view, but you've got a lot of extra information you want to apply, and you could apply that earlier in analysis. I think that would be helpful. Amy asked about the flow graph, and since you've been messing with this, Kyle, you may know. I don't actually know. Can you have like custom like actions on blocks that you could do?
Like right click actions or
And specifically, it was like hiding them or highlight. So hiding them or highlighting all their connections and stuff. That the changes Kyle mentioned that Peter's working on might allow like the hiding, like you could group and hide or group fold a bunch of blocks into one kind of thing. That might actually be something that gets added part of the core. I don't know
when you
about
go to render a graph in Binjy right now, it's a static graph.
yeah.
So you would have to at the very least re-render the graph when you're changing it, which we don't have built in, I don't think, right now.
Yeah, I think the answer is no currently, right?
But when you are writing a UI plugin, I think you're given the option to register on block. So you could make context aware, block level aware, right-click options.
Okay, that might work then. I think you'd still have the issue of like you'd have to reflow, re-render the whole if you want to make any change to it, like in your side. It wouldn't be a simple like. Also, you can register this action callback that can be given a block in like your at the FlowGraph API level, right? Like you'd have to do it as a UI plugin. It'd be a little bit more tedious, maybe, but
Yeah.
I mean, technically, you can do anything as a UI plugin, right? Like it's just Qt, and you can go in and hook and add. You can add anything you want. But I think this is in between the two. It's not as easy as like something off the FlowGraph API, but it's not as hard as just like raw like injecting into a bunch of Qt. That exists.
What broke my heart is that Qt doesn't have Rust bindings, so you can't make a Rust UI plugin.
Yeah. Actually, I was talking to Rusty about that yesterday. He's talking about redoing his cubing app, but in Rust. But he's going to just do the back end in it because the still doesn't have Qt for the UI. But
yeah, we'd have to wrap all the Qt objects and pass handles back and forth to be able to.
No, it's not worth it. Turbolizer. I don't know if I've seen Turbolizer before. Visualize.
Oh, and I'm happy to say, if anyone has binaries with dwarf info in them, and they want to absolutely make sure that it works in Binjy, send them my way.
Yeah,
I want them for my test cases.
That's a good ask, and even better, if they get added to like the unit tests, then the guarantee sort of like their stuff will work well in the future too.
Yeah.
Brinley asked about Python on Apple's M1, Apple Silicon. Yeah, so the main problem is Qt Web Engine has been held up. I saw some activity on the Qt issue today, but it didn't look promising. It was just like renaming the tagging, and like it didn't look like it was actually commits or anything. So I still don't know. Unfortunately, looking at the Qt timeline, their plan was like, we're just going to launch 6.0. We're going to cut off everybody on all the open source branches using 5.15. And like, yeah, we know most of the plugins aren't done, but oh well. So they're generating a lot of like bad blood in the community right now because of the way that they're doing the transition. We'll see what happens with that. So a bunch of stuff, like in particular Qt Web Engine. If we weren't relying on Qt Web Engine, we could probably go basically right now and switch to it. I think Qt 6 is not out yet, still in beta, but like basically we would probably just as soon as it drops. Oh, no, it was released. That's right. Yeah, so it was released. It just lacked the like there's a ton of the plugins. Yeah, it's used for it's used a couple different places. So this here is Qt Web Engine. When you preview like information from plugins, this is also Qt Web Engine. There's also the reports. So like, oh, no, not that. Snippets. I think I have a report. No, I don't have a snippet. Use the report, but there's show markdown reports. This is actually going through the Qt Web Engine as well. So there's a couple places, and it's useful enough, and we like it enough that we don't want to have to go back to Qt WebView. Although ironically, Qt WebView is also one of those plugins that's not supported in Qt 6 too. So if you look at their or was it Qt 6 WebView schedule? I forget. I found this page the other day, where they just literally have like this list of like, yep, all this stuff doesn't exist yet and won't until 6.1 or 6.2. Excuse me. I think it's this one actually, despite the name. Yeah, this is it. Coming in 2021. So like later on at some point, here's all the stuff that we don't yet have all the modules that are Qt modules that we didn't have done that we shipped Qt6 without. That's literally what that list is. So that was pretty surprising. I mean, we don't want to move. No, React Native. Ugh, no, I'm not going to mess
We
with
just
that.
have to wrap cloud.
Yeah, there have been several jokes along that line internally, but no. So unfortunately, we're kind of stuck just waiting on Apple. I don't think it's going to be worth it for us to try to do our own Qt web. Like we could. The bug list is getting small enough that we could probably do our own. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we've been mostly joking too about the cloud stuff too. There's a little bit of not joking in it, but we could probably. There are some beta builds of like Chromium that are obviously Chromium itself is on the M1 native, so it should be doable to get a Qt web engine, do your own build. You could definitely do M1 Qt builds right now on the M1 hardware, so it's possible to cobble your own stuff together and maybe get it working. Which just generally, I don't think it's worth the effort. Yeah, I mean, I really want it too, really, because like those machines are so fast and the battery life is so good that we keep internally being like, is it worth the effort? But I just think ultimately we're better off just waiting for Qt probably and keep focusing on energy on other things. As much as I really do want that build, because I mean, although again, so to reiterate, it's already there. Like you already have native M1 support if you have headless. So if you've got a Binjy on an M1 laptop and you try it in headless with the ARM M1 Python, you get. So yeah, Billy, they posted a tweet. I don't think they've released that build yet, but yeah, they're close, or they've got it like internally. I don't think it's the updated one. No, I don't think they use Qt Web Engine, so they could totally use the stable one as long as they're not using Qt Web Engine. They could just use the standard 6 and move to that. Although 6 also breaks some other stuff, so there may be some old UI plugins and things that break too. So it might be it's supposed to be a big set of changes. But yeah, I understand it more than I'd like at this point. But it's a weird world. Like the fact that we can't license Qt, because if we did, we'd have to pay for Qt dev licenses for every one of the open source plugin contributors. Like that's the reason we don't license, or we're only on the LGPL version of Qt, is because if we pay for a commercial license, which we'd otherwise be happy to do, we'd now have to pay for every community member who wants to contribute a plugin, and that license is expensive. It is real expensive. So yeah, I mean the 16 gig memory limit isn't as bad. Because of the way Mac OS handles like out of memory situation and swap way better than most of the other OSs. Like it's not like Linux where it's like, oh, out of memory, I'm gonna kill one of y'all. Hope it's not you, or hope it is you. Like, yeah, Amy, it's like really really annoying. Like their licensing terms specifically say like anyone contributing to or using like that build of Qt then that you're using has to have a paid for license. And if you actually look at like the pricing, it is, I mean, it's expensive. I think like, yeah. So we'd be paying $233 per month per user with 3 years paid up front. So everybody writing an open source plugin, we'd be paying whatever that is, 233 times 12 times 3. We'd be paying $9,000 per open source developer. So anyway, yeah, no worries, Amy. Actually, I think we're about to close it down anyways, unless anybody else has any other questions. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's good to have you here. Glad you enjoyed it. I look forward to continuing these and hanging over in the future. Kyle, thank you very much for here. Let me switch back to Hangouts. Let me see you, the infinite Kyles. Yeah, thanks.
Say hello to all my clones.
That's right. That's right. A little while. Man, there's even a couple of me in there. Cool. All right, everybody. Well, it's good to chat. We'll catch everybody next week too.
See ya.